Alright, I've brought this project along a little further, probably as far as it needs to be for us to make the decisions that can lead to construction drawings here. One of the things that concerned you guys was how much open space we were going to have underneath that hot tub area. This is the hot tub up on top, but down below, and this is where the stairs come down, right here. And so I had first endeavored to keep this completely open under here, since that was what you indicated you were wanting, is that open as far as possible. In order to do that, this is the kind of members that it's going to take. Double 2x12s everywhere under the hot tub, going the whole span, and then single 2x12s out here. I'm still a little concerned about how high that tub is off the ground and whether that's going to make this deck want to wave. We'll probably put some cross bracing in here to try to keep that from happening, if this is what you want, if you want this all the way open under here. But the main thing, if I wanted to keep this area here looking to the east open from the stairs to the corner, have that whole 11-foot tube open, it takes this special beam. I don't know if this is going to be available locally, I did not check on that, but it's not a regular lumber, it's a Paralam 3.5 by 14. You'll still have minimum 6'8" clearance under that beam as you step off here onto the earth, but whether or not that's available, I can't really say. I just want to make sure that this is what you want to do, is keep that all the way open under there. Some of these films will try to demonstrate that. I'll add some narration to them. Hopefully all this stuff together will lead you to the decisions that you need to make. But if we wanted to get away from having this completely open under here, if we were willing to live with perhaps this area here open, which is about an 11 by 11 area, then we can have a second beam underneath that hot tub that's on top here. And then these joists just become like the main deck joists, 2x8s at 16 inches on center, no double ones anywhere, and then the necessary beams at the margin, and then this one in the middle. And these are all just treated lumber beams, so there's no special sourcing for a treated parallel. So really the main call on that is whether you want this completely open under here, or whether you are willing to live with less of it open like this. And when less of it is open, it's easy enough to make this area here to the east open all the way out. Alternatively, you can move this column down to here, and then it's still open all the way under here, and then this front end, this south end, is open all the way across with no interrupting column here. And for what it's worth, I used this available diagram based on the size of the hot tub shown in your diagram, your plans, deck plans. I assumed that was going to be a larger one, and so I've used this value as my loading on those joists in that area. And this must be the one that is open all the way under there and on the east end as well. The retaining walls aren't put in. You can tell that upper patio is going to present some difficulties in terms of a retaining wall, if that's where it's located. I did, in my next alteration, lift that upper patio up another riser, so it's 5 risers down now from the screen porch. and this is the version that adds the central columns and beams, compressing your space to the east. So that upper slab has shown, that front edge of it, that south edge of it, that's almost 30 inches. It's very close to 30 inches at its highest, which would require a railing, really. Alright, it's been a couple days since I put these together. I was just putting them together as I went, trying to keep track of what I was doing. And I'm not going to say any more about them. If you want to continue to watch them in whatever condition they are, and pause it however you like. There are some further developments along the way that have to be considered, including whether or not all that upper structure is treated lumber or is clad with cedar or other outdoor materials that's white, perhaps. One thing with regard to that upper patio is perhaps it's better if that's shifted up north and reduce the need for that heavy or big retaining wall to its south. I'll mention that with regard to the doors, this is about a 6 foot. I'm showing as a slider. It could be a double hinge like a French door. And this, though, I'm showing is a 42-inch wide. Larson makes this 42-inch wide screen door that's hinged. And which way it is hinged, which way it swings, you would have to decide. This also points up another issue with regard to how do we do these railings down. This was just done quickly, and I would think in this environment you have the railing on the right side instead of the left, heading up. But those are some things to think about with regard to that. And in the next several photos, it's going to show you the change from going to a treated lumber type environment up here to a painted or clad white environment. So these were just a number of the things that I came across that submitted for your consideration now. And just if you need any help understanding what I'm talking about, give me a call or whatever. Otherwise, if you know exactly what you want at this point, let me know, and I will develop the construction drawings for the same. Actually, there's a number of other things I forgot to mention, and so I came back and just covered that very quickly. One of the things is that wasn't apparent from the photos, but you'll see in the next ones, when I had wrapped this with that underdeck, that covering, that vertical covering here, the idea there was, besides concealing these columns here, was to create some outdoor storage space in here. And further along those lines, and if that happens either way, regardless of what happens, but if this is the margin here, you probably could just run this retaining wall straight west here and get rid of this north-south leg, and that would bring this covered underdeck space up from 11.3 to 12.3 by about 10, because I have this retaining wall here put in front of that final column. A lot of this can be developed as you build, depending upon field conditions. And the next thing, pretty critical, is that where we have these tall columns in particular, these are the white ones here, but where those go up and they're 6x6s, a lot of people report problems with twisting on these 6x6s. So if we're going to leave that unclad And in any event, this is what I wanted to cover. When we clad this, it gives us the opportunity, instead of making these solid members here, these can be built up from 2x6s, 3 2x6s, and a couple layers of 1/2 inch treated plywood, which are a lot more reliable in terms of staying straight and not twisting. But if we want to use straight timber, straight 6x6, or even, I think, by the way, that we could make that upper structure all 4x4, particularly if we clad it, particularly if we clad that in white. I think I would try to design that where that all of these up here, instead of being 6x6s, are 4x4s, and then clad with some sort of outdoor material. So your finished columns are about 5 1/4 or so. But if we did want to use this straight like this, it's going to be important that whoever selects that lumber selects it so that it's less likely to twist. And this is a little diagram, and if they know what they're doing, they can they already know this. This next section concerns itself with just a couple things: the framing on this structure up here, and a few of the little alternatives with regard to that. If we try to put this together with all solid lumber, in other words, if we use, and I would think we would use 4x4s here, for these verticals, and these size up as 4x10s, if those are available, if you can get a treated 4x10. Otherwise, these beams, this one here and this one in the foreground, the margin beams, B1 and B2, those have to be built up multiple members, two 2x10s, either just right together or with 1/2 inch plywood between them. But the idea is that you'll see those seams, etc. And additionally, we'll need connections between the columns and that beam. This open end here, I think we can just build these on top of the deck structure. These aren't really holding anything here except the screens, so those are not a big deal. And really, that assembly between these members here and this one, for example, those can use these long Simpson screws, 1/4 inch Simpson screws, which can be pretty easily concealed. Alternatively to that, but back here we definitely have to have some actual column caps attaching these vertical columns to those beams B and B2. And this is the decorative kind of version if we were just to leave that exposed. But with this, I don't know how they get this various screen worked around that, because that's going to come through. This is just another one that presumably people could use out here. But with regard to using those kinds of brackets, whether it's with this timber framing, whether it's the galvanized steel ones, just the plain ones that are used every day, or those ornamental ones, we have to deal with how the screen is going to cover that or get past its intrusion through this plane here. And this is why, for a variety of reasons, I would recommend we try to build this out of 4x4s up here and regular 2x10s, etc., and then just clad that all in some sort of 3/4 inch exterior material, concealing all that hardware and making for the best, easiest screen interface across those surfaces. You can also see in this one I've moved that railing over to this side. Again, this door hinging is going to have to be considered. I don't know if you could find a really high quality zip screen. I like that actually in both of these locations. But that's your call, but it should be specified. Remember, right now I'm showing this as a 42 inch hinged door, just to keep these stairs large enough and gracious enough coming down here. This pad looks like it's still about 8 or 10 inches off the ground, because I was trying to get this reduce one of these steps up here, making this 5 instead of 6. So that's that. But a second thing to think about on these two photos here is, if this asymmetry here bothers you, if you don't like that, then this is probably the alternative there. I don't know that we want to go with the Rigmore roll of coming across here. At least you don't have to replace the whole big screen if you had, for example, if this thing continued across here and you had those transoms all the way across on both sides. That would probably have a nice look, but think about that. I really like how when you do this, it picks up what's happening over here a lot better. And then here is, when I was still framing that, upper section in 6x6 and then cladding that. Really a chunky look. These are all 7 1/4 inch members, these vertical ones here. This is a much chunkier look like that. There's, going away from that bit there. How nice it picks that up when it is present versus when it's not. You can see the other thing that happens in these two photos here is that this first one is when that beam, that hot tub beam, is still pushed a little bit further east, and then we pick up this extra 16 inches down there, making this storage place a little smaller and the underdeck area a little larger. So that's those two. And finally, that final kind of plan, except I would probably have this across if it were me, but with this a 12'3" patio down here, no retaining wall coming down this way, that's the final look on that. I will say that I did not bother trying to model any of this land up here. I actually added this little retaining wall, but it didn't bother with building the terrain. But you are going to have to do something to make sure that, because there's not a lot of fall between here and there, and that'll have to be addressed or that'll just become a mud hole, particularly of a sidewalk coming down here, I think. So that's all going to have to be accounted for during the build. And I promise, I think that is it now. Let me know what you think about any or all of this, and we'll try to go forward from there. Thanks.